In this video, I'm going to share with you my wild, windy, up and down journey to get from where I was to where I am currently in my career, in my life, some of the decisions, some of the failures, and then some insights that I would love to offer my old self had I known what I was going to experience up to this point. Let's do it. Hey guys, thanks for joining me on this week's episode. We're going to talk about my journey. A question I get all the time is, Justin, how did you get to where you are? Now, I'll just say this right off the bat. This is my journey. This is my experience. And I don't know if I could have gotten to this point if I went back and gave myself advice. And the reason I share that is there are no cookie cutter ways. There are no pure paths to where you want to go. And my invitation to you is to create your path if there's not a path, to learn what you need to learn and to lean into the best version of yourself and to seek out and pursue your curiosities, because that's kind of what got me to where I am today. I grew up wanting to be a professional baseball player. I wanted to follow the footsteps of my father, who played in the minor leagues with the Dodgers and with the Brewers, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I grew up playing the game of baseball. My family tried to get me to play other sports. My dad even tried to coax me away from baseball to play golf, but no, I'm going to make it to the major leagues as a baseball player. Played all through high school, went to BYU, played baseball there, and things were going really well. And one day after the game, I was walking to my car and I met a gentleman named Vi Sikahema and his wonderful wife. And he introduced me to broadcast journalism. He suggested that I should go into that, and it's a wonderful, fascinating, fulfilling field. I fell in love with it. In my degree, I learned how to write. I learned how to speak on camera. I learned how to edit. I learned how to use computer software, a lot of different things, interviewing skills, in order to be the next Stuart Scott if my baseball career didn't work out. But at that time, I thought to myself, okay, great, I'm gonna be a Major League Baseball player and then transition very easily right into broadcasting. Well, an interesting thing happened while I was playing baseball. I didn't love it as much. My passion for playing, embracing the boredom of consistency, the things that you need to be able to do to perform at a high level, it just wasn't there. It was beginning to fizzle out. Now, while I was playing baseball, we had our clinical sports psychologist come and give us some talks. And I will never forget, as he's talking about routines and visualization, it reminded me of what my parents were teaching me in high school. It reminded me of about a book that I read in high school called Heads Up Baseball by a gentleman who later became a good friend of mine, the late Ken Ravizza. And as he was speaking about these concepts, I went up to him and I asked him, how do you do this? Like, what do you do for a living? And he says, oh, I'm a sports psychologist. I teach mental skills training and in the field of psychology to student athletes. Now, I took that and I put it in the back of my mind thinking, okay, that might be something interesting to look into down the road. But I began to pursue my degree in broadcast journalism. And so my first day in my internship in NBC Sports Los Angeles, I realized in that moment, this is not what I want to do for a living. Well, I'm glad I learned sooner than later, but obviously you fulfill your obligations. I went through and I knew I do not want to do this. Now, in addition to studying broadcast journalism and playing baseball, I was also pursuing a teaching path in religious education. And so as I'm doing that, I realized that I love to teach. I'm learning how to build curriculums. I'm learning how to engage in kinesthetic learning. I'm learning educational pedagogy, so to speak. Once I finished my internship in broadcasting, I went right into teaching. I had a classroom full of rambunctious, exciting, wonderful, incredible, energetic high school students from 9th grade to senior every single day, 4 to 5 periods a day for 5 years. And so my baseball career is behind me. My broadcast career is behind me, and now I want to be the best teacher I can possibly be. And in trying to do that, I went and applied for a graduate degree in higher education. I get declined. So I go and I get declined, and I don't know what I want to do and what I want to be, and so I kind of lean back on my haunches. I kind of go through the motions. I don't go to pursue broadcast journalism, but I start taking a look at sports psychology. I start thinking about that conversation I had with that sports psychologist in college and thinking about Ken Ravizza and thinking about that field a little bit. And I would always talk about it. Hey, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna do it. And one night I will never forget, this is one of the turning points of my life. While I'm teaching high school and coaching baseball lessons to provide for my family with 3 kids in diapers, we were about to go to bed one night, and I told my wife how I'm gonna do this big thing in sports psychology. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna pursue it. Now mind you, I will say this, mind you, I'm gonna go back a little bit. There was a degree at the University of Utah, close to where I live, called the psychosocial aspect of sport, with an emphasis in performance psychology and improving human performance. But I never pursued it. I never applied, because there was something inside of me that said, who are you to do that, number one? And you're comfortable. You love teaching. You love doing this. And so I didn't pursue it, but I talked a big game. I talked like I was gonna do it. And this memorable night, we're going to bed. I turn the lamp off and it's pitch black. And I'm talking about being in sports psychology and changing lives and making a pivot in my career. Yet another pivot. Pivoted from baseball to broadcasting, from broadcasting to teaching. I'm talking about doing another one. And that night, my wife, who is incredibly supportive, incredibly loving, the number one fan in choosing and in supporting me and doing whatever I want to do, she said a phrase that I'll never forget. She said, "Justin, you're all talk." I remember thinking to myself, is she joking? It's pitch black. I can't see if she's joking, being sarcastic or laughing. I turned the lamp on, I turned to her, I said, "What did you say?" She goes, "You're all talk." You're talking this big game like you're going to do something, like you're going to get your master's degree, that you're going to go out there and be a great mental skills coach, but you've done nothing. You're all talk. Good night. And she goes to bed. I didn't sleep that night because what she said was true. Next morning, I open up my laptop and I begin to apply to the University of Utah. Story goes, I end up getting in. That's a whole nother story. Barely get in, and I meet some amazing professors. And one in particular really took me under her wing. There's Dr. Nicole Detling, who to this day is one of my favorite people in the world, and just took a chance on me. This whole organization, this university took a chance on me, and I fell in love with it. From teaching high school, after I got my master's, I pivoted into this field, and I opened up my own company. I left a full-time teaching job with medical insurance, with a 401k and a bi-weekly salary, threw it out the window to go pursue this degree. And as an entrepreneur, the phrase is you eat what you kill. And I wasn't doing very much killing. I wasn't getting a lot of clients. And so I was waiting tables, I was coaching baseball, doing a lot of other odd jobs just to provide for the family. And then at the same time following my passion. Wouldn't you know, one thing led to another. I kept going and started to build a little bit of clientele. I started working with youth athletes. I started to teach on social media. I started to work with companies. Led me to the military. Was there for a few years. IMG Academy, Boston Red Sox, Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay Rays, and so forth. One day while we were eating dinner, fast forward a lot, we're eating dinner and we're talking to our kids about what they want to be when they grow up. And my son, no joke, looks me in the eyes and he says, "Dad, I want to be a quitter like you." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I want to be a quitter like you." I said, "What do you mean you want to be a quitter like me?" He goes, "Yeah, you quit a lot." So what do you mean I quit a lot? He said, "Well, you want to be a baseball player and you quit that. Then you want to be a broadcaster and you quit that. And then you want to be a teacher and you quit that. And then now you're in doing what you do and it looks like you love that. And that's what I want to do." Well, that's where I ended up teaching my son and my other 2 daughters the importance of pivoting. Your dad's not a quitter. I pivoted. I ended up following my curiosity to the next thing. However, I brought all of the skills that I learned in one job and one passion to the next one. Collected skills and knowledge there to the next one. Collected skills and knowledge there to the next one. And so the lesson for today's video is, if you can learn anything, it's the power of a couple of things. Number one is pivoting. There is power in, as my son says, quitting or pivoting, being able to move on to the next thing as you evolve, as your curiosity changes, as your pursuits changes, never being locked in to one thing. Another thing is, it's your journey. There's no one cookie cutter way to do it. If you want to do one thing and then change industries, then change industries. You don't need anyone's permission to do that. And the question I get a lot of times now is, where are you gonna be in 5 years? I don't wanna put that ceiling on myself to answer that question. Because if I would have answered that question 5 years ago, I wouldn't have, in my wildest dreams, dreamed of doing and being where I'm at right now. And who knows where the path is going to lead. It could lead back into broadcasting. It could be doing this. It could be a university. It could be in a completely different industry doing something I'm completely passionate about. And so my invitation to you this week is to consider your strengths, to consider your values, consider your skills, and to dream big, and to identify what you need to do to be the best version of yourself and to dominate this level where you're at right now. You might be a student. Be the best student you could possibly be. You might be a coach. Be the best coach you could possibly be at this level. Wherever you are, dominate the level you're currently at. But at the same time, continue to water your own ambitions and to learn the most you can and be able to introduce yourself to other industries and learn from people outside of your industry, because you never know where it's going to lead. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully there's something in there for you to pull from, and please join us next week. Subscribe, click the like button. I love to have you join us, and hit the bell so you know when the next video comes out. Once again, have a great week, and we'll do it again next week.